Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth in the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case. This is a robbery. This is a robbery, I said calmly, pushing my golden hair behind my shoulder. Bring me everything.
Ma'am,
Just do it, I told the bank teller firmly, giving him a look. It wasn't a glare exactly, more like one of those looks your mom gives you do something wrong. I wasn't threatening him. I didn't even carry a weapon with me. But he was going to do what I say. I stared into his gold green eyes with my baby blue ones, telling, insisting, he did what I asked. See, I didn't give orders. I never had to. People, especially men, just listened. This man, however, with his long black hair and mysterious green gold eyes, was stronger than most. He hadn't set off the alarm. He was considering it, though, his eyes darting to it nervously, then back at me. He scanned my figure, not with desire, but as if he was searching for the weapon I didn't have. We stood like this for many minutes, no one else taking note of what was happening. I studied him closely, deciding he was quite handsome. His nose was straight, and he had these beautiful dimple marks in his chinges and cheeks. His long black hair brushed his back, and he was several inches taller than me. Not that I minded. It was actually better this way. Bring me everything, I repeated in a whisper. I urged him on, pushing him quietly with my gaze and stance. I wasn't pushy, but I was confident. No one had resisted me before. Why should I expect it to stop now? Around us, the world continued, heels clacking against the floor and boots thudding, some heavy, some light. I heard buttons being pressed, and a tiny ding of approval as a loan went through. The man didn't move. He looked at me seriously, considering my request. Bring me everything, I repeated in a whisper. His eyes widened slightly, but still he didn't move. I could tell I was close to getting what I wanted. He was almost broken. He dragged a hand through his hair. He knew he should alarm someone. He didn't know if I had a weapon or not, or maybe he did. He glanced around, looking for anyone who might be an accomplice. Several burly, suit-wearing men stood around talking, occasionally glancing at me. Now they had desire in their eyes. I was a respectable woman, with curves in all the right places. I turned my hip slightly, just enough to show myself off. The man thought I was giving a signal, especially when one of the other men took a step towards us. I smiled one last time, Please? I added sweetly. The man left to get what I wanted. Everything. Several people stopped him to ask what he was doing, but all he did was point at me and then continued. One of these people came over to me and asked what I was doing. I told her I wanted everything. She just nodded, blankly. Weakling. Soon, I had the whole bank wrapped around my little finger. The man came back, pushing a cart full of money. I peered inside and dug around, making sure they weren't tricking me. I glanced at the man and smiled at him seductively. He smiled back, winking. He was letting me know he wasn't under my control. I raised an eyebrow at him, ignoring the lusty stares the men were giving me. He raised an eyebrow back. I rolled my eyes. "Give me the cart," I said haughtily. No, I gave him a look, one that said, "Don't defy me." The man smirked. "You said you wanted everything," I smirked back. "Then come. Allow me to rob you of your job, your soul, your dignity. Only if I may steal yours." That's when I hear it. The tiny, lilting whisper in my head, urging me to love him, to listen to him. I smiled at him, knowing his secrets. "Come," I whispered. "Come to me." The man smiled and took a step closer, leaving the cart. I didn't care about the cart anymore. All I wanted was him. I swam in his beautiful green-gold eyes. I could feel him fall deeper into mine. He tugged at the cart, pulling it with him as he advanced on me. My heart beat eagerly, and I leaned forward. The part of my brain still sane was terrified, knowing what this man could do to me. It excited me. The man was so enticing, with full, soft lips and thick hair I wanted to run my hands through. He scanned my figure again, undressing me with his eyes, no longer looking for weapons. I gave him a sly look, then turned around, leading him outside. I bent over, opening the trunk, and I felt his eyes on me the entire time. Gentlemanlike, he helped me unload the cart, hiding the money in the fake walls. I stuffed several bills in my bra in case he tried to pull something. I got the feeling he would. His voice whispered in my head, just as mine whispered in his. I excited him, and he tried to pull me against his chest, but I only smirked and pulled away, climbing into the driver's seat. I allowed him to sit shotgun. I was already several miles down the highway before anyone at the bank realized what had happened. It was too late now. I already had the money. I glanced at the man. We had the money. The man noticed me looking at him. His hand slid over the seat, resting on my thigh. I glanced at him slyly. "What? You looking to have some fun?" "Of course. But ma'am, you never allowed me to finish my sentence earlier." I frowned. I had no idea what he was talking about. The man sighed. I was going to say, I know your secret. I raised an eyebrow, pushing my hair back. Oh, you're a siren, I smirked. Not quite. I am what you are. The man's eyes widened nervously, like a cornered animal. No? Oh yes. The man drew his hand back, knowing he now had no power. I had robbed him blind. He thought he had control, that he had power, that he had strength. He didn't. All he had was an illusion. I laughed, and without pulling over, slid over into his lap. Now give me everything. The man, who had been excited minutes before, only looked terrified. We were cruising down the interstate with no one at the wheel. I only grinned. This was going to be fun. What would you like, sir? Sir, we need you. Ed, please don't panic. Tell me what happened. A man died at 4th Rose Street in Pie A Trust Bakery. Pray, tell his name. Robert Jr. Business tycoon Robert Jr. A sudden alarm switches on in my mind. You are right, sir. I hang up the phone. A new case is like coffee shots for me. Sudden shots of energy with a sudden smell of success. Being a private detective was tough in 1959. The remnants of World War were still haunting people's minds. So basically, everyone was behind food and money. Hence, the rise of murders and death of rich men were the constant headline of newspapers and weekly magazines. The police were sometimes behind the culprit, or were sometimes the culprit themselves. My first successful case was about Dorothy Madoc, a murder mystery that had shaken the neighborhood. At that time, I was 19, who had only read Sherlock Holmes as his curriculum and used to write some articles for a newspaper column. Back then, I took the case for justice, not for fame or success. With my wit and observation, I nabbed the murderer to everyone's surprise and dismay. The success of the case made fame kiss my toes, but the police grew cold feelings towards me. First, the bitterness was one-sided. Later, with the continued collision of our thinking and ideas, it became a competition for us to prove each other wrong. Coming to the case, Robert Jr. was famous as well as an established businessman. He was constantly in the newspaper due to the rounds of an affair between him and a beautiful singer. The case was a goldmine for the press because now it had glamour and stardom. I reached the spot. It was a small sit-in bakery with musty brown walls and white windows. It was unusual for a rich man to dine here. People were thronging outside the bakery to view the sudden death. Police were having a tough time trying to control the mob. I honk my Ford car on purpose to gain the attention of the press. In seconds, a group of photographers and cameramen with their journalists were rushing towards my car. I took some time to come out of my car, but when I came out, I was surrounded by the sudden flashes which blind my irises. There is a constant tugging and screaming of journalists at my face. I raise my hand to silence everyone, to bring their attention towards me. I will ensure that the culprit is caught and the innocents are given justice. With the help of the police, we will solve the crime as soon as possible. Till then, please maintain your integrity and work ethics. I make a straight beeline towards the bakery, where I'm coldly welcomed by Inspector Houston. Don't come here, fella, without any prior information. Take your media attention somewhere else. He smirks. It would be better if you pay enough attention to your duty rather than observing my style and sensibility. He stares at me and spits on the ground. So what are the details of the case, Mr. Houston? According to the witness, Robert entered the bakery with singer Sasha. They ordered a lime tart with lemonade. Then, in the middle of the conversation, an argument burst open. A few seconds later, he asks for water, which was given by Sasha from her bottle. In moments, he clenched his head and passed out. So, where is the singer now? She is in the basement of the bakery, hiding from the press. Bring in all the witnesses, and let's interview each one there itself. We agreed to investigate the scene first. Nothing was weird, nor there was anything suspicious. Then we interrogated each eyewitness. First was the singer Sasha, a beautiful woman in her early 20s, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Her cheeks were stained by mascara, and her lips quivered from the constant crying. It was odd that a young girl like her was interested in a man who was in his late 40s. But it is not odd in a patriarchal society. I gave her my handkerchief. A man gotta respect a lady's emotion. So, Miss Sasha, what happened during your brunch at the bakery? Robert called me here to discuss some private matters. He was stressed for the past few weeks. Can you guess what he was about to discuss? I ask. She moves her head from side to side with few sobs. Miss Sasha, when Robert asked for water. Instead, you could have called the waiter. Why did you provide it from your bottle? Robert liked clean filter water. He always used to question the quality of water at restaurants. Hence, I used to carry my own source. Did you hand over the bottle to the police? She nodded. The next person was the waitress, the only witness who was present at the bakery. A young woman in her mid-20s, with hazel eyes and raven black hair. She was confident with her body language and was least affected by the sudden death. What's your name? Rebecca Taylor. For how long you are working here? Since the past few weeks. Can you describe what happened this morning? Mr. Robert was coming to our bakery for the last few days, but this time he came with Miss Sasha. He ordered tart, and she ordered lemonade. It's wrong to eavesdrop on anybody's conversation, so I was at my counter cleaning the stoves. But in the middle of their conversation, they started arguing. Mr. Robert was demanding Miss Sasha to leave her career. Then he asked for water, to which she gave her own bottle, and in a matter of seconds, he clenched his head and fell on the ground. Where was the owner of the shop? Every morning, The owner goes to buy the supplies for the rest of the day. He went out as usual. The next person was the cleaner boy, who was not the witness. But he was there in the basement of the bakery when the incident took place. What's your name? Vade Danish. So, Vade Miss Rebecca told me that you went to the basement to take a puff of the cigarette. Sometimes you had to twist other people's confession to extract the truth. No, sir. Miss Rebecca had seen a few mice in our basement, so I went there to get rid of them. Okay, so for how long are you working here? 2 years. Everything was done. We talked to the witness. We investigated the scene, but couldn't find a clue. The police, as well as I, was waiting for the medical reports of the corpse, but it had a lot of time to it. Miss Sasha was on house arrest, and other people were under observation. I took a few days to search for the missing links in this case, but could not find one. This morning, I decided to give a visit to the bakery. Through the glass windows, I could see Rebecca taking orders from the customer and Vade helping his owner. I enter inside, and Rebecca gasps her breath seeing me. Did I frighten you, Miss Rebecca? No. I mean, yes. The incident has made us face the worst fears that we never could have expected. What will you like, sir? She asks in a humble tone. Oh, nothing. I just want to sit and relax for a few seconds. Nothing else. She goes away, leaving me in silence. I try to connect the information that I had about this case, but couldn't figure out any missing links. A force knocks at my temples. The migraine bouts were reoccurring every morning. I press my fingers at my head to ease out the pain. I search my pockets for the container of pills, but I couldn't find them. Sir, are you okay? I see Rebecca beside my table. Yeah, everything is fine. Nothing to bother about. She puts a tray in front of me. It has herb tea and strawberry custard. It's for your migraine, sir. It will soothe your nerves. I thank her and dig in my spoon because I have skipped my breakfast this morning. At the last spoon, a thought occurred to me. To clear it, I needed to meet the doctor who was examining the body as well as the reports. I rush out of the bakery without paying the bill and race my car to the hospital. Doctor, did Robert had a migraine? Because according to the witness, he clenched his head before passing out. Did he get a migraine attack while having the arguments with the singer? I don't know, lad. Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't. The technology isn't so developed to bring in the conclusions. What did you find in the reports? The mystery is that we couldn't find anything with his body. The brain and his other organs were intact, but his blood reports are weird. What does the report say? That during their argument, there was the sudden spike of salts in his blood flow. He had large quantities of salts in his body during his death, which we call hypernatremia. In hypernatremia, a person typically feels thirsty. The most serious symptoms of hypernatremia result from brain dysfunction. Severe hypernatremia can lead to confusion, muscle twitching, seizures, coma, and death. So, how did this condition occur in his body? Any clue? We couldn't find that, but the bottle that Miss Sasha gave had typically weird ingredients and salts. I think you should further investigate it. The police were informed about the reports, and we both rushed to the villa of the singer, who is currently under house arrest. Miss Sasha, we found salts and weird ingredients in your bottle, and Mr. Robert died from severe hypernatremia. The Justice of Sword points at you, because before he had passed away, he demanded water from you. I drink salt-infused water to keep my voice intact and to keep throat infections away. She started to sob and pleaded in front of us that she was innocent. She was taken in for police custody, and the court will manage the rest of the hearing. We gave a press conference about the case and addressed questions of the media. After a few days, I visited the bakery again to pay my pending bill and to meet the staff. The staff members were happy to see me and greeted me with warm smiles. I paid my bill and talked to each staff personally. Rebecca was happy and asked me about my migraine conditions. That day, how did you know that I got a mild migraine attack? My mother was suffering from migraine, so I recognized the symptoms really fast. So, you live with your mother? No, sir. My mother passed away a year ago. I live on my own. I'm sorry to hear about your mother. Well, take this. I take $50 from my wallet and hand it over to her. Take it as your tip and use it wisely. She takes the money and her warm finger brush with mine. Her cheeks tinge like strawberries, and she gives me a peck on the cheek. I smile at her and walk towards the door. Sir, please do come here again. I turn around and say, I will come if I have time. I know you will. I nod to her and sit into my car and drive to my home with a smile. I was watching a soap opera on television while cooking my dinner. Then I hear a knock on the front door. Who is there? I shout, switching off the television. Sir, it's me, Daniel. I take a sigh of relief and opened the door. Daniel was my counterpart, as well as my personal spy. He used to track the backstory of the cases, as well as the victim. So, Daniel, what brings you here? The back history of Robert Jr. Tell me the juicy details. He was a drug dealer in South Carolina and was once arrested while delivering a load of cocaine capsules. This businessman earns the white money with the help of the black money. I said, listen, he used to execute his plans with the help of a female doctor. But after his arrest, she was absconding and still is on the wanted list. Here, see her photo. I take the file to view, and my head spins. I reach the kitchen counter for support. I could not believe my eyes. It was Rebecca. What happened? Daniel asked. She is the waitress who works at the bakery where Robert had died. For a few seconds, we glared at each other and rushed to our cars. I sped up my car, not worrying about getting a fine. I rush into the bakery and shout, "Where is Rebecca?" Vade rushes towards me with a note in his hand. Rebecca quit her job this morning and left a note for you. I take the note and read, Dear Thomas, take a warm coffee with a heavy breakfast to curb your migraine attacks. Before sleeping, drink a nice herbal tea. It will cure the migraine away. And what else will you like, sir? Your friend, Rebecca. Something catches my eye across the street, and I rush towards the window to see clearly. It's Rebecca, with Renard's auburn hairs and a wicked smile. She waves at me, gives a flying kiss, and in the next second disappears. Murder at Ex-Ircon. The extreme ironing convention was infamous in Preston. For the last 8 years, extreme ironers from around the world fell upon the city. Their antics in the streets caused emergency calls for days. Ironing on top of city buses. Ironing while hang gliding over downtown. Ironing while belaying down the cupola of City Hall. Every year, there was one incident that truly left its mark on Preston. This year, the incident would be the death of Sean Morrison. I looked down at Sean's body, his face brutalized by a blunt object. In any other situation, identifying the murder weapon might have been tricky. But not here. Not at Ex-Ircon. There was no mistaking the iron-shaped dent in the dead man's head. I had seen it before. I clenched my fists, remembering the day that my wife had been murdered 8 years ago. The image of her face haunted my nightmares. Beautiful until it had been ruined by a Bosch TDA 2650 G-Bide quick fill, the highest rated iron of 2012. Preston's coroner had estimated the time of death at about 2:15 a.m. The murder weapon had not been found yet, and the trail of blood leading out of Sean's hotel suite had run cold quickly. No witnesses had come forward. The extreme ironing community was notoriously tight-knit and likely to protect their own. They had done so in the past. Detective Clay, they're ready. A police officer on scene had separated the suspects, and she handed me a list of names. I squared my shoulders and got started with the interview process. Anna Kruger, the hotel manager, was already in Sean's suite, pacing around and surveying the extensive damage. Pieces of drywall and broken glass littered the carpet, and the telltale burn marks of overly hot irons defaced the furniture and carpet. I watched her until she stopped mid-pace near the end table next to the couch and knelt down. Anna stuck her arm in a hole in the wall and pulled out a Panasonic A66K automatic iron. I never would have allowed these extreme ironing United States assholes to have Ex-Ircon here again if I weren't so hard up for money. At least they rented out the entire place. Anna glared at the iron-shaped hole in the drywall. They always ruin something. They leave burns and run up the electric bills, plugging in all their stupid irons. She raised her eyes to meet mine and brandished the iron. But this time, Sean went too far. When was the last time you saw him, Ms. Kruger? He came down last night, around 11, asking for more towels. She pointed at a pile of charred towels near the couch. I can see why he asked. Anna held out the Panasonic iron, her hand shaking. The temperature gauge is on the highest setting. He was burning things on purpose. If he were still alive, I'd sue him into oblivion. Miss Kruger, do check with that ironing board vendor, detective. I had to chase him out of the storage room around 2:30 this morning. Mighty suspicious, if you ask me. Errol Fleming, the owner of the Cleveland Ironing Board Company, leaned against the wall in his room. That damned Sean, he growled, German accent thick on his tongue. He ruined me. He posted negative reviews of my new ironing board design and used his extreme ironing championship fame and influence to boost them. Go on, the Cleveland steamer. It was a board made specifically for steam irons. Sean was a proponent of steam irons, but he said my board had a shitty design. His was the #1 review on Amazon. Everyone saw it. My profits tanked. No one bought. I am glad he is gone. I'm sure his negative reviews were the only reason no one bought the board. Errol's eyes widened, and he straightened his back. I am not happy he is dead. That is a terrible thing to say. I am innocent, of course. Mr. Fleming, can you tell me what you were doing in the storage closet last night? Color rose to his cheeks. I cannot say. It would ruin me. I thought your business was already ruined by Mr. Morrison. Yes, my beautiful Cleveland steamer. But I had other boards in development. What does this have to do with your excursion? Errol sucked in a breath and held it until I thought he might faint. Finally, he breathed out and answered. I was looking at the hotel's ironing boards. I frowned. I couldn't come up with any good ideas, he wailed. I was looking for inspiration. You can't tell anyone that I'm an ironing board design fraud. Errol slumped back against the wall. Gottverdammt, he whispered. Thank you for your time, Mr. Fleming. Please, wait. You should talk to the tall man with curly hair. I saw him sneaking out of Sean's room last night, after 2. Thomas Prince. The tall man with curly hair was Thomas Prince, a longtime advocate for the use of steam irons over dry irons in the extreme ironing competition world. Thomas was a prolific donor to Kickstarter campaigns for new steam iron technology, and he wielded a Rowenta DW52700 1-focus Excel steam iron during competitions. He looked up from the hotel bed when I walked in, eyes red and puffy. Detective, I hear you were out late. Yeah, I went to see Sean. Any particular reason? We're friends. Thomas frowned and corrected himself. Were friends, Mr. Prince. Your visit makes you the last person to see Sean alive. That doesn't mean anything. Have you talked to Noah yet? He was going to drop some major news on us tonight, and Sean got wind of it yesterday. He was so upset. What news? Sean wanted to take over Eos. He thought Noah was doing a shit job, and he's never been shy about voicing his opinion. Noah threatened him, so Sean took a swing, caught him right in the jaw. Good thing he has a weak punch. Go on. Thomas leaned back. Not much else to say. I went to Sean's room to talk him down after that. He was pretty shaken up and talking about leaving Eos completely. Noah had really gotten him riled up. I appreciate the information. In the meantime, I would like you to stay right here. Thomas shot me an annoyed look. Am I still a suspect? You were seen leaving Sean's room last night, and his body was found this morning. I'd say you're the primary suspect. I called for additional officers to watch Thomas's room, while one officer remained inside. Noah Bowers. I approached the sullen president of Extreme Ironing United States, Noah Bowers, in the hotel's business center. He looked up from his seat at a small conference table. Before I could say anything, Noah spoke. You think I did it, don't you? I didn't say that, but you know I threatened him, right? Well, he threatened me first. I didn't want him to, think I was intimidated. Noah stood up and spun one of the chairs. Look, bro, Sean was a dick, okay? That's no secret. So he wanted to oust me and, take over as president of the EIUS. That doesn't mean I killed him. I said nothing. Noah grunted and crossed his arms. If you really want to know who did it, you should talk to his fiancée, Maren, bro. She was gonna, poison him or something. Maren Knox. I visited Maren in her hotel room. She was sitting calmly on the hotel bed, watching a reality show, and she didn't bother to look up as I entered the room. I understand you found Sean this morning, Ms. Knox. Sure did. I went in to make sure he was up in time for the convention. He liked to sleep in. You had access to his room? She stared at me. Duh. We were engaged. You don't seem upset that your fiancé was murdered. Maren shrugged. I'm not. He was an abusive, cheating piece of shit. And I was going to end things tonight. But now I have to thank someone for saving me the trouble. I understand you were planning to poison Sean. Maren cocked a thin brow. Why would I poison him when I could leave him? That's why I got my own room in the first place. I was thinking of putting eye drops in his food so he'd shit his guts out. So yeah, maybe that's technically poisoning him, but he wouldn't have died or anything. It's still an actionable offense, Ms. Knox. Whatever. Like I said, I didn't do it. She paused in thought. You should talk to Eddie. I saw him arguing with Sean yesterday. It looked pretty heated, but I didn't stick around to listen. Probably something to do with steam versus dry irons again. Eddie's crazy for dry irons. Eddie Wu was doodling on hotel stationery, but he put the pen down as I walked into his room. I understand you and Mr. Morrison exchanged words yesterday. We have the same argument every time we see each other, Eddie said, sitting up a little straighter. He's always going on about steam iron superiority, but he fails to see the beauty and simplicity of a classic dry iron. When did you last see Mr. Morrison? Eddie continued, as though I hadn't spoken. Using a dry iron is an art form. He walked across the room towards an ornate case. Let me show you. That's okay, my iron, he cried out in panic. Eddie showed me the empty case. Where is it? How? Eddie sank to his knees, tears spilling from his eyes. My glorious iron. I can't believe it's gone. Mr. Wu, I don't care about your needs, detective. What about mine? My iron is missing. The perfect sole plate, unblemished by steam holes, polished to a high shine. Did you know I had a custom handle built to fit my hand perfectly? My heart skipped a beat, and an image of my wife thrust itself into my head. The iron mark on her face wasn't perfectly smooth. There were spots, steam holes, but Sean's mark had no holes. He was killed with a dry iron. Mr. Wu? I said, struggling to keep my voice even. Who else here is a dry iron aficionado? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. Eddie grinned like the Cheshire Cat. Sean Morrison. Did anyone else know? Eddie shrugged. This is a small world, detective. It's hard to hide something so scandalous. His grin faded. You should talk to Thomas. Thomas Prince. Thomas jerked up in surprise as I walked in the door. He set aside the iron he was cradling and wiped a tear from his eye. Mr. Prince, how well do you know the others at this convention? Well, me and Sean go way back, of course. Eddie's been around for a while. We don't agree on irons, but he's a nice guy. Marin came into the mix a couple years ago. Noah's been the president of EIUS for a long time, but he mostly keeps to himself. I don't know him that well. Do you know if anyone might have a motive to harm Mr. Morrison? Marin and Sean have been together for a long time, but that's been falling apart. Thomas made a face. She's a real piece of work. I wouldn't trust her with my iron under any circumstances, but I don't really know the others well enough to say. I took a deep breath. Did you know that Sean was secretly into dry irons? Thomas winced. I went to visit him after he argued with Noah. He was really stressed out. I don't think he meant to tell me, but he slipped up. He told me about his preference for dry irons. Go on. I was shocked, you know. We had spent years talking about the merits of steam irons over dry. Thomas threw his hands in the air. I mean, you can use a steam iron as a dry iron. But he just kept talking about how cool Eddie's iron was. Thomas stood and walked to the window. I asked him if I could have his championship-winning steam iron. And I know it was kind of selfish to even ask, but it's a steam iron. He faced me, his mouth hard. If he was so into dry irons, there's no reason he needed to keep that one. I knew the answer already. He said no. Thomas hung his head. Yeah, that's when I noticed it. A plug barely poked out from under the hotel's dresser. Thomas noted my pause and followed my gaze. We lunged at the same time, but I reached the dresser first, knelt, and yanked the cord, and there it was. The Oster Heavyweight GCSTD 1109 Classic, stained with what was surely the victim's blood. Eddie Wu's missing iron. I expected to fight my way out of the situation, but Thomas sat down heavily and exhaled. I didn't mean to kill him. I backed away from Thomas to the room door. Sean had Eddie's iron in his room. He was messing with it. I think he was trying to break it so Eddie wouldn't win in today's competition. Thomas groaned. And that was bad enough. If the sponsors found out, we'd lose all those investments. But when he refused to give me his steam iron, I just snapped. I stuck my head out the door and motioned for the nearest officer to assist me. Before I could even think about what I was doing, Sean was on the floor, and I was holding Eddie's iron. I brought it back here to hide it, but you see how much good that did me. Thomas looked down at his hands. I'll never iron again. The officer casually entered the room. I won't resist, he said, looking straight at me. I messed up. Mr. Prince, please remain still, the officer said gently as she bent down and handcuffed Thomas's hands behind his back. The officer led Thomas away, but the satisfaction of solving the case rang hollow in my heart. I returned to other suspects to tell them they were free to go. When I got to Marin's room, she simply nodded and started packing her things. But there was something I had to know. Did you know your boyfriend was a dry iron promoter? Marin's eyes widened. Sean's been advocating the benefits of steam irons, both in competition and in the home, for years. The slight tremble in her voice gave her away. She was hiding something. What aren't you telling me, Ms. Knox? She stared at the floor and bit her lip. Look, he'd always use a steam iron for shows and competitions because that's what people expected. He had a sponsor to please, a wealthy one, but behind closed doors, Marin took a deep, shuddering breath. Behind closed doors, we used a dry iron. She buried her face in her hands. Oh God, you can't tell anyone. His reputation would be destroyed. The sponsor would pull all their funding out of the projects he and Thomas were working on. Like what? They had an idea to improve this older model steam iron, right? To make it more efficient and easier to clean. The steam holes on that model were tough to clean, but it was otherwise a great iron. I would even use it sometimes when he wasn't at home. I liked it better than his dry iron. She laughed sadly. He would have been so mad. Marin stood up and started to pace. Anyway, he never got a new steam iron, so he always used the same one. His championship iron. It was iconic, blue and white. Have you ever seen it? Something in her voice made me uneasy. "Let me show you," Marin continued. "It's beautiful, Xavier. How do you know my name?" She opened a decorative case near the foot of the hotel bed and pulled out an iron. My blood ran cold. It was a Bosch TDA 2650 G quick fill. Marin smirked at my expression. "You recognize it, don't you? Or rather, you recognize the shape of the soul plate. It was the same one that killed your wife 8 years ago." She stepped closer, her grin widening. "He did it, you know? Sean killed her. She found out his secret obsession with dry irons, and he couldn't allow her to talk." I inched my hand towards my concealed pistol. "Put the Bosch down, Marin. You don't have to do this." Marin raised the iron, her pupils dilated with madness. "But I've always wanted to know what it felt like, what it could feel like to kill someone." She swung the iron towards my head, barely missing. I called for backup and pulled out my pistol to defend myself. "I don't want to shoot you." 2 police officers swept into the room before I had to take any further actions. Marin was quickly disarmed and handcuffed. She glared at me as the officers pulled her from the room, but she said nothing further. My heart ached with memories of my wife. Whether he knew it or not, Thomas had given her a little bit of justice, but that didn't excuse his actions. He would be behind bars for a long time. Marin would serve time for being an accessory to murder, for covering up Sean's crimes. I would have preferred to see Sean stand trial, to look into his face with satisfaction as the bailiffs hauled him away. I would have to content myself knowing the truth of my wife's murder had finally been ironed out. The sins that betray us. It was a warm Parisian evening, and fog rose from the Seine. It mingled with the smog of industry and clouded the gas street lights that dimly lit cobblestone streets. Beside the Seine, in the 4th arrondissement, was La Force prison, within which was the man Eugène Vidocq, whose wrists were shackled to the dungeon wall by cold steel chains and ankles bound by manacles. Eugène had black, curly hair and long, thick sideburns that taunted the corners of his mouth. He wore rags. His nose was still bruised from the scuffle to detain him when 5 men were needed to pin him down and capture him. "Monsieur," he said, speaking to Julien de Veria, the Parisian chief of police. "I became a criminal the night my father had me arrested as a boy. When those gendarmes had turned up and taken him away to a cell that night, he had felt betrayed, devastated, and humiliated by his father. Above all, he had felt angry, and that anger had stayed with him all his life, a chip on his shoulder that had been ever present in his interactions and informed his life choices. Julien sat in the opposite corner of the dungeon on a wooden stool. His top hat lay in his lap, and his walking cane leant against the wall. he remained as still as a gargoyle. Your trial for treason commences at first light, and you wish to reminisce about your father. Do not waste my time. The flame of torches lining the walls flickered. A rat scurried between iron bars and retreated into the shadows. I have watched the guillotine sever the head of my dear friend César Herbeau. This cannot be my fate. He shook his head. The surprised look upon César's face as his head fell to the ground was forever etched in his memory. He could not shake it, could not recall how César used to smile, or the jovial times they had shared in local brothels. You have deserted from the army. You have stolen, you have forged, and you have destroyed marriages. Why would I care about your fate? Orange from the flickering flames glinted in Julian's eyes. A distant scream echoed around the chamber. It briefly registered to Eugène like the sound of a new prisoner being subdued into his iron attire. Monsieur, I crave a life no longer on the run, said Eugène, thinking of his recent arrest. His estranged wife, who left him for a soldier, had found him back in Paris and reported him to the gendarmerie. He could never be free while the sins of his past stalked his being. Such is the fate of a criminal. Why would I care about what you crave? You are wasting my time, Julian said, snatching up his cane and smashing it against the stone wall. He stood. Monsieur, s'il vous plaît, let me tell you what I can do for you, so as not to waste any more of your time. Julian pushed out the backs of his jacket and sat carefully on his stool. Proceed. Thieves adore me. Hardened wretches esteem me. I drink and mingle in their circles. I have their trust. I know their hearts. I will gather their secrets and share them with you. We have informants already. Why would I need you, monsieur? I will be the best of them all. Of your informants, do any have as much esteem amongst the other criminals? Of your informants, have any been as cunning as me to escape prison so many times, even dressed as a nun to avoid detection? Sir, I will go to lengths those simpletons could not even imagine imagining. I will be your best informant, monsieur. I know this without a doubt, and I think you do too. I can't trust you, monsieur. When my late father had me arrested as a boy, my fate was sealed. In my mind, I became a criminal. It has taken my whole life to realize he did that out of love. I can be different. I can be of use to society. I can be the man my father knew I could be. I don't know if you can, monsieur. I've seen the end. I've seen my friend's head freed from his body by guillotine. I know that God's grace has all but kept me alive. I will be as devious as I was in crime, but use those skills to catch the criminals and make Paris safer. He shook his head. Just as the rats carry the plague, I fear you spread a vile truth. Monsieur, s'il vous plaît. Just give me one last chance. Please. Julian was silent. We will hold off your trial in the morning. But know this, you are one mistake from execution. I want intelligence, actionable intelligence, or you'll be seeing your father sooner than you had imagined. He stood, gathered his cane, placed his top hat on his head, and waved to a guard outside the cell to let him out. Eugene put his head back on the stone wall and blinked away a tear. He would be tireless. He would be disciplined. He would use the tricks and the cons and the black arts he had learned. It was clear that Julian barely believed what was said, but that was fine, because he knew what was there in his heart. And it was true, and with time, he would prove it. He felt the anger that had fueled his heart for so long start to thaw. The miserable wretch that was his soul felt a flicker of hope. His father had loved him and had wanted him to be the best he could be, no matter how tragically he had tried to teach that lesson. And now he understood that it was only ever a lesson. He could become the man his father knew he could be. Reyes. Murder case. The doorbell chime filled the anxiety-spilt air. Clemency and I both exchanged nervous looks. We both knew who it was. I walked up to the door while she arranged a few drinks. Oh, welcome. Mr. Wright, please take a seat. I greeted the young man. He was wearing a blue suit and tie, left parted hair, and a shaved beard. Mr. Wright sat comfortably on the foam, glaring at the drinks in front of him, but did not dare to have one. So you're Clemency Cook? He asked, cocking a brow towards me. I left a foolish chuckle and pointed at Clemency. No, she is. The lawyer's balls danced from me to Clemency's face while she stood near the dining table, trying hard not to blush. After all, Mr. Wright was a handsome youth. Mr. Wright adjusted his collars and asked Clemency to sit in front of him. He cleared his throat and began. Your name is Clemency Bailey Cook, am I right? Yes, sir. The gentleman forwarded his hand and was replied with a firm shake of Clemency's. My name is Ian Wright, senior lawyer from Rake Walker's. Am I right that you saw, He glanced at some papers and continued. See a Reyes being brutally murdered in front of your eyes? Yes, sir. When did this happen? Around 1 a.m. on August 21st. What were you doing at such an odd time at Chargine Road, Memphis? Clemency pressed her lips into a thin line and looked at me. I signaled her to spill the truth. The night before, my boyfriend broke up with me. So in tears and scars, I decided to hit the club. On my way back, I saw, He nodded, as if he had gone through the same and understood her pain. Would you like to give some details? I could tell Clemency was not liking this. She never wanted to see the lawyer. It was me who pushed her. As a responsible citizen, And of course, when you are innocent, you should not fear to reach the hands of laws. It is for the betterment of all. Clemency took a deep breath and said, I was all head over heels with wine and was fumbling through the dark streets when I saw them, harshly stabbing the teen, while her screams echoed all around the place. The murderers saw me, but I was drunk, so they might not have expected me to remember anything. But that's what makes me different. No matter how unconsciously befuddled I am, I remember everything. Mr. Wright bent a bit forward. His eyes sparkled a doubtful glint. Do you remember the Terminator's face? Yes, but I didn't know who it was. Ian took out some inked photos from his bag and displayed them all together, like a pack of cards. Any one of these? Clemency thought for a second, biting her lips when she finally pointed at a man's photo, disguised in a scruffy beard and smooth eyes. He wore dazzling spectacles and a cowboy hat. Hard to believe he was cruel enough to cut his employer's salary. Murder was far off. Just one, Ian said, analyzing the chosen photo. No, there were two, but you only have one man's photo. Okay, we will work that out. Ian turned towards me and said, bring this lady to the court tomorrow. She will be a powerful witness. I nodded my head in agreement and waved the officer goodbye. After a few hugs and words of appreciation to Clemency, I walked the way to my house. I'll pick you up tomorrow for the trial. My last words read, Chanta. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Calling the case of the murder of Sia Reyes versus Charles Young. Are both sides ready? The judge's thundering voice alarmed all the ears. I have never been in a trial before, so it was all new. Yes, my honor, came a reply from Ian and his opposition. Your honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant has been charged with the crime of murdering a 17-year-old girl named Sia Reyes from St. Crim's School in the middle of the Charjan Road, Memphis, on August 21st. Your Honor, I would like to call my first witness, Alice Reyes, elder sister of Sia Reyes, for a few questions. Let Alice Reyes be presented in the court, the judge announced, thumping his gavel on the wood. Alice Reyes gets presented. I am so sorry about your loss, Miss Reyes. As per my information, you live with your... He gets uncomfortable for a second, but hides it with a cough. Late sister and your mother, about 60 kilometers from Charjan Road. Am I correct? Yes, came a sore voice from her throat. What made her go to the Charjan Road? She got a call in the middle of the night from his friend Charles Young, saying he had met with an accident and needed immediate help, and he did not know who else to call. Ian turned towards the judge and said, My lord, as you can see, Sia was cleverly trapped into coming to the Charjan Road with a 60-kilometer drive without giving it a second thought. Objection, my lord, came a voice from the lawyer in defense. Objection sustained, said the judge. The person in opposition stood up and said, "My honor, my client, Charles Young, did not call Sia Reyes in the middle of the night. They have not been in contact for a couple of days now. Here is the call, History of Sia Reyes." Handing the bailiff the proof, the judge nodded as he went through the papers. "My lord, I would like to call my other witness, Miss Clemency Cook, through which it would be clear that Mr. Young was involved in the murder," Ian said. "Let Clemency Cook be presented in the court," the judge repeated, hammering his gavel. I was sitting among the public, and I could feel the environment tense. A small smirk played on Ian's face. "So, Ms. Clemency, were you present on the Sharjah Road around 1 a.m. on 21st August? "Yes," Clemency replied. I could feel every nerve in my body jolt up. I was really getting excited. Now that famous Charles gotta get infamous. I felt my blood screaming yuppie from the inside. It feels so good when guilty people get punished. Did you see Charles Young brutally murder Sia Reyes? Everybody's brows lifted up at the second. No, I did not see anything except a lifeless body lying in the middle of the street. I was left shaken. Ian and I glanced at each other in shock. "What?" But during our discussion, you said, Ian tried to protest. "Enough. Any other points from any side?" The judge yawped. The court fell silent. The gavel declared the adjournment of the court, leaving everyone standing in their seats, ready to get out of the courtroom. Clemency was smart to get out fast, but I caught her arm just in time and pulled her in a corner. "What was that? Why did you lie?" I said, trying to keep my voice low, but my temper was breaking its bounds. "What? Oh, right. Listen, girl, you're too innocent for this world. This world runs on money. I got paid for it. Now get lost. I have other work to do." A new voice inside of Clemency spoke. I couldn't believe she just said that, uprooting all my faith in law and humanity in just a couple of seconds. My eyes fell on Alice, who was staring at me as Clemency walked away. I was too shattered to face her. All I could do was mouth, "I am sorry. Thank you, everyone, for reading my story." I have never really attended any court session or have any idea how it works. It is based upon my understanding on basis of bits of information from movies and series. Please forgive me if my context is not similar to the actual process. Regards, Kea, Tokyo Smoke. Possible triggers: intimidation, slight, mention of drugs and trial. She flicked the wheel of the lighter. Sparks shot up, followed by a small flame which she held to the end of the cigarette dangling from between her lips. "Talk. You've got about 5 minutes to convince me to let you live." "In that case, mind if I have a cigarette too? That's executioner etiquette, isn't it? Or is that just Hollywood?" "Just Hollywood," she said, but offered me her pack of cigarettes with her free hand just the same. Her other hand the one hidden from view inside her jacket, pointed a gun at me. Not of the Hollywood variety. This was a Nambu M57. It would get the job done. Time's ticking. She pulled back the hammer for emphasis. The clicking sent a shiver through my entire being, commanding every single hair to stand at attention. Would you believe me if I said I did it because I love you? I asked, a futile attempt at lightening the mood. The strange thing, though, was that I meant it. Even then, as I looked at her, knowing full well she'd kill me once the smoldering tip of her cigarette reached the filter. Really, Takashi, you did it because you love me. My dad is in jail, Mom's awaiting trial for complicity, and Itsuki is awaiting whether he'll be behind bars for 5 years or 27. I thought you liked Itsuki. I did. But you didn't, I said, while I tried to light the cigarette I kept in the corner of my mouth. It was true. Although I didn't like him at first, he became much like a brother rather than just an in-law after we got married. I didn't look at her as I said it. I was staring at the graffiti frog that had made its appearance on the wall across the train tracks 2 weeks ago. But I knew the face she was giving me. I remembered every line that appeared on her usually smooth skin. You always complained about how he badmouths you to your dad at every opportunity he got. It's the only reason he was going to take over the company. You're smarter, more experienced, and more ambitious than he was or ever would be. It should have been you, and you know it. As for your stop. As for your dad, Hina, he chewed it up. I continued. All of it. She poked me with the barrel of the gun to let me know who was in charge here. That's no reason to have them locked up. True, it wasn't. But it was convenient. For years, even before we got married, she had been complaining about all of them. Her dad most of all. Ever since she was a little girl, she had been preparing to take over her father's company when eventually the time would come. She made sure she got the best grades all throughout primary and middle school. Even at university, she had always been at the top of her class, while on the weekend, she inspected contracts for business deals and saved the company millions by spotting hidden clauses. But none of that mattered. Once Itsuki was born, he was all her dad had cared about. I took a deep drag of my cigarette. Marlboro Gold. I always hated lights. They miss that slight scratching sensation when you inhale. Isn't it, though? 5 years ago, during Christmas, when your dad announced that Itsuki would take over your position as CEO, you said you never wanted to see any of them ever again. I didn't mean that. Then you didn't mean it either when you repeated it after he gave you the opportunity to develop your skills elsewhere, for your birthday, I suppose? She was angrily fingering her cigarette, flicking of ash that wasn't there. I could only hope she was a little more careful with the trigger. I still had 3 minutes left after all. Mind if I get something from the vending machine? I asked. Last meal and all that. I got up before she could give me an answer and walked over to the overpriced candy dispenser. I fumbled in my pocket for my wallet that wasn't there. Can I borrow a 500 yen piece, hon? She didn't move, just raised an eyebrow. Fine. I looked around, but of course there was nobody around at this hour. The parking lot was empty, but for 4 cars. I turned a quarter turn and forced my elbow through the glass. Ah, motherfucker. That looks a lot less painful in the movies. I took 3 packs of Pocky from the machine, careful not to cut my hand on the sharp edges. Strawberry, matcha, and the regular ones. I wasn't sure which ones you liked best. I thought strawberry, but it could have been matcha as well. Anyway, here's both, I said. and sat back down on the hood of my beat-up Honda Odyssey. She didn't try to take any when I offered the box to her, just took another drag of her cigarette, which was reaching the halfway mark by now. I always liked the original best myself. I took a drag of my own cigarette before taking it from my mouth and taking a bite of 4 of the chocolate-covered sticks at once. Disgusting. I still don't get it. How can you eat and smoke at the same time? I lifted my shoulders in answer and swallowed before blowing out the smoke I'd been holding up in the air to be carried off by the wind. I never had a problem with eating and smoking at the same time. I knew many people who did, though. Back to what I was saying, I did it for us. In return for the evidence about the shipments of cocaine I gave to Nasanto Corp, they offered me 1 billion yen. 1 billion hina. You'd be rid of your family. We could both quit our jobs and move somewhere else. We'd never have to work again. Tell me that doesn't sound like a dream. You wouldn't have to teach at the high school anymore. No more overtime and compulsory socializing with colleagues. Isn't that what you always wanted? Not like this. They are still my family. And how do you think this will look for me? With my family name ruined? I'll be seen as the daughter of some drugs cartel. My parents weren't like that. They didn't even know about it. The arms of the gold-plated station clock twitched. 10:35. The dial was beautifully decorated with the image of a sun that, in the morning, reflected the sunlight so brilliantly that it seemed to shine itself. Now it was barely visible at all. True, that was on Itsuki, but none of that would have happened if you'd been in charge. Besides, your dad will be out in, 3 years? Your mom's sentence will be even shorter. I doubt she'll even have to do any jail time at all. You just don't fucking get it, do you? You think that's the story the media is going to run with? That it was just my brother and the rest of us had nothing to do with it? Sure, I might not be seen as an accomplice, but I'm part of that family. You didn't ruin just them. You ruined all of us. Honestly, I didn't get it. Maybe it was because I'd never been close to my own family, or just because we were rich now and could go wherever we wanted. You took my last name when we married. No one will associate you with them once we move somewhere else. Where'd you want to go? Osaka, or maybe Kochi? You always loved the beach. Hell, we could even go to Europe. You pick a country, and we'll be on the next flight. My eyes were fixed on the entrance of the empty train station. One of the lights illuminating the statue a little to the left of the gates was flickering and drew my attention. It was a statue of a man, but I didn't recognize him. Over the past 6 years I'd been coming here, I'd never taken the time to read the plaque. "You've got about 1 minute left," she said, inspecting the cigarette clutched between her fingers. "I've got to say, you're doing a real bang-up job so far." The gun was still pressed in my side, but it didn't scare me as much anymore. It was just there. "What would you like me to say? That I'll buy you the most beautiful jewelry, a nice car, a big house with a pool? You can have all that if you want, but you already know that." She let another gray cloud escape from her mouth as she nodded. Then she turned to look at me and gave me another look. "Go on. We could have kids, a boat." She scoffed. "Really? You think having kids will fix this? We tried having kids, remember? It didn't exactly work. We could always adopt them. You used to dream of having a boy and a girl. The boy had to be older, you always said. If we adopt them, you can make sure we get that." She let out a deep sigh. "It's almost time, Takashi. Anything you want to say, I suggest you say it now." I took a drag of my cigarette as I thought it over. Your last words are hard to come up with on the spot. I took another drag while staring at the statue again. Who is the statue of? Takashi? Her tone was annoyed more than angry. She prodded me with the gun once more. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I looked back at her. Her eyes didn't have any emotion left in them. No love, no anger, no sadness. I still love you. I'd want those to be my last words. I still love you, I repeated. She shook her head. Then, right as she shot away the still smoldering cigarette butt, the 10:38 train drove into the station. I took a final drag of my cigarette and shot the butt ahead of me. That's my cue, sayonara. A loving murder. Content warning. Assisted suicide. Descriptions of violence. Mentions of war. Vulgar language. See, you all think I am about to say I don't regret what I did. I just did it for fame. But what you don't know is that murder happens all the time under your pretty little noses. Your little gerbil was killed by your cat, and you don't condemn him. You know foxes are killing cute rabbits, and yet you give your kids stuffed foxes and call them sweet names. People do not murder. Animal instinct does. Men are full of it. Women just like to taste a bit. And in my case, I got drunk on that animal instinct. Part of that instinct is the fact that I do feel guilty. The poor guy had a family, a life, dreams, or something like that. I wish he didn't have to die. I do. But let's be honest. You aren't here to hear my life story. You are here to hear what actually happened. So let me fill you in. The fucker was cute. I can admit that much. He was charming, kind, sweet, and somewhat thoughtful too. He bought his girl some flowers at the Dolly Hop dance. They were apparently her favorite flowers too, the yellow roses that symbolize purity and growth. She laid one on his grave. I was court-ordered to attend, and I left a black dahlia. I killed him using some bleach powder. The awesome thing about being a woman is that you can stitch a lot of things into your dresses, little bows and ribbons, or even jewelry. My grandmother passed down this beautiful sterling silver capsule ring with a latch that lifted up the freshwater pearl to reveal a secret pocket for anything. She suggested a love note from that special someone. I didn't put in just a note. I put a little act of love in there. I knew the kid from school, biology, home ec, English, you name a class. He was in it with me. He seemed smart, sharp jawline, toned nose with little to no blackheads, pretty hair, basic brown eyes. He wore simple clothes, and there was nothing remarkable about the guy. He was a member of enough clubs that when a high school reunion happened a few years into the war, he could come back with his sweet honey and battle scars, shake a few hands, drink some bad beer, and then leave to go home to his picket fence and little baby. This never happened, though, because I killed him. It was around when we were getting draft cards. His number was called. He didn't want to go. I heard about him crying in the boys' locker room after PE. Those basic brown eyes went red, and everyone knew no class was that ruthless. His girl tried calming him down, but he put a couple dents in some lockers and stormed off. He brushed by me, apologizing for almost knocking me over, and gave me a look I will never forget, like I could help him if I tried. Very few knew I was a leader of many anti-war protests. War is horrible, but to everyone at this school, I was worse because I threatened to do something about how horrible it was. People just didn't know that I actually did anything. My bite matched my bark. I set off smoke bombs in the middle of busy streets, blocked roads to government buildings, worked other protests, or helped out literally anything that was against the war effort. I didn't just burn some draft cards. I used blank ones to light my candles. I caught the kid after a class, and I told the kid it was okay. I told him that his fear was justified, and his anger was too. I told him he could hide out with me in my basement, or we could injure him badly enough to not be able to go. But his eyes flashed with realization before I could finish. I will never forget what he said. It's either I die here or on the battlefield, and it's gonna be here. His eyes were cool and wide enough that they seemed almost black. I asked him what he meant. He said, I either die on the battlefield with strangers in a foreign land, or I die here, in my own clothes, on my own soil, and my friends get to see a body that isn't horribly mangled. We had never really spoken before, and I told him I didn't know what to do with that statement. He laughed and asked what he should do with the draft card. I proposed burning it. That was the first time I ever got high. While drugged up, you say shit that you never thought you would mean. A rolled-up draft card with pot on the inside was something I never thought I would do, so I guess the trend follows. I do think sober thoughts are drunk words. I say a bunch of shit drunk I would never say sober. But to be clear, my actions were while I was sober. I killed him stone cold sober. I digress. While high, he started telling me all about his family and how his little sister prayed that he wouldn't have to go to war and could stay at home with him. He made great pancakes and was the only one who could talk their mom off the ledge. He started rambling about Jesus and how he wouldn't want him to go out like this, but America was Jesus's baby or something. And that meant that dying for America was just as bad as suicide. I took a long, contemplative puff, and then I hit him with this. Just do it yourself then. If Jesus doesn't want you doing it to yourself, but dying for America is just as bad, then end it now. Less blood that way. A prettier casket. He took a puff, and I saw the lines on his face pull taut with thought. I could see him smile at the image of his sister, but that happiness burnt out at the thought of the death message. I wasn't being serious. Death was so close to all of us we mentioned it in one way or another. But the way he hunched over himself like he was already leaving me behind proved that he wanted out. He took another puff before he said, "All right," and started plotting. Now I want to make something very clear. I am not an angry person. The kid was just as enthusiastic about dying as you would be about planning a party while your parents were out of town. It was all up in the air until it wasn't. Until he caught my ring and said it could be a murder weapon. Said I could put some poison under the pearl and let loose when he least expected it. Until he kept making me promise I would kill him no matter how hard he begged otherwise. It was in the air until he wrote his notes, said his goodbyes, sold his shit, and made himself look like the loveliest boy you ever did meet. It was 3 days before he was supposed to leave. 4 months had passed since our first smoke session. We never talked about the plan again. I stayed up at night wondering what was the good thing to do and if there was even a moral compass in this situation. But I knew what I had to do. We had a blood pact, me and this kid, and I never lie. It was only 3 days before he was supposed to leave. He was packing and invited me over to smoke, which happened more and more often over the course of those 4 months as that draft card started to rise from the ashes. I think his parents even thought I was his new girl or something because they invited me to dinner multiple times. The kid taught me how to roll that first smoke session, and I started to work my magic. I gave him 1 blunt, then 2. In the second one, right before I licked the seal, I popped open the freshwater pearl and let the powder fall like snow. I let him take a puff and turn up the music. He started coughing and choking, and at first he was smiling. A big smile, too. One of the ones I thought he had at breakfast with his sister over some syrupy pancakes. Then he realized this was it. I saw his dark brown eyes panic, searching for why, but then the recognition clicked. He started to go down and almost said something. He fell to the ground in one fell swoop. I always wondered what he said. I bet it would have been a thank you. If it were me, I would have cursed myself for being so damn loyal. The odd thing about being in a room with a dead person is that their eyes don't close. In all the movies and plays, their eyes close on their own, but I had to do that myself. I didn't want his mom to have to do it for me. I thought, already come this far, might as well go down swinging. I never thought I would be a murderer, but I also thought this country was for the best of them. This all might not make sense, and I don't really expect it to. It barely makes sense to me. I think I just knew people were going to die. He decided if he couldn't beat death, he would join him. I think even part of me thought I wouldn't get in trouble for it. Like God wasn't condemning these kids with guns, rather sending them food and movies and chicks, and maybe he would do the same for me. Your question is why I did it. Now I have a question for you. Why do you not kill all the foxes for eating the rabbits? Because that is how nature works. Well, war isn't natural, and yet to spend millions on it and make poor people give up their food and kids for it. War is egregiously human. You murder an entire country just because you wanted power. A power that, if it was natural, would be yours already. It made national news. People were all about the war effort at the time, and I was being interviewed by every news station in the country. Little Miss Peace and Love kills. Can you be a war vet if you only had a draft card and no Purple Heart? Smoke session gone political. The last one is my personal favorite. Now I sit here in a cell with a single notebook and dull pencil that I stole from the bathroom. Someone had left it for someone else, but I took it, and I'll pay for it later with whatever stale crackers I have left. The nation hates me. I have angry letters from thousands of people, but none of them, not a single one, is a veteran. I think that's interesting. I bet it's because deep down, people know that I did something good for someone, or they know that they would have done the same thing. I regret the fact that the kid had to die. I just don't regret that I did it. I think it was the kindest thing I have ever done in my life. At least he didn't have to close his dead buddy's eyes shut. Considering he asked me to kill him, he would have passed out from just touching some blood. His note. To whom it may concern, my dear family, I am so sorry that it had to be this way. I wish I could still hold your hands like I did when I was alive. She doesn't even know that I am writing this note. Patty Schreiner, I mean. She is innocent in all of this. Her hands might be far from clean, but so are mine. I didn't let her do it because I wanted to be far from you. It's because I wanted to be close to you. I was just so scared. I didn't want to be around kids my age in the morning, and then new ones who just got shipped over at night. I was terrified looking at that draft card. I couldn't go. I just couldn't. And I didn't want your last memory of me to be while I was riddled with bullet holes and gangrene in a foxhole writing a letter home about how much I missed you. I wanted your last memory to be of me sitting at the dinner table, all limbs intact. I'm still so sorry. Patty did it because I asked her to. I wanted to go. The day after I got the card in the mail, I even stole beers from our fridge and drank myself tipsy before school. I didn't think anything mattered. I knew Patty from school. She hated the war, and everyone thought she was a commie because she openly opposed the war effort. I thought she was a communist too. But once I got the draft card, I understood her anger, like I understand why humans need oxygen to survive. She caught me after class and said that she could hide me or something, but I didn't want to have the option to be physically alive, but dead to my country, or dead to my friends, or dead to you. I knew I would die on the battlefield. Dad, you always knew that I hated sports or anything athletic, and I was no good on my own. I wanted to die with you guys, not on my own. Please forgive me for not wanting to die on my own. The day after I got my draft card and Patty offered me a way out, we got high. I was rambling about how suicide was a mortal sin, but going into a war I know would kill me was basically suicide, so it seems like I had no options. Then she followed my line of reasoning and said that I should just do it myself, like it was a lesser of two evils thing, and she was right. So we started plotting, high, mind you, and I was just talking out of nowhere. I said something about her ring and it being a surprise. I didn't want to chicken out and not go through with it, so I told her to let me have it when I least expected it. I am still expecting it, as I'm writing this. I just thought to get this done before she follows through with it. I don't know when it is going to happen, or how, or when, or even if it will, but I know we haven't spoken about it in about 5 weeks. I am supposed to leave for Nam in 2. We talk about how much I don't want to go, but nothing about the plan. I hope she didn't forget. I hope I do. I don't know what I want anymore. I can't live with the oldies crying about how I died for them. I will die because someone else killed me. Please think about that when Patty goes on the stand. And when you do remember, all I will be able to do from wherever I am is thank you for that. I love you. I love you. I love you. Please know that. I am sorry that I won't be at Sam's graduation, but I bet you will be stunning in the cap and gown. I love you more than I can say. What Patty did was because of me. Please don't hate her for it. Love, Simon. Enclosed in the note was a recipe for pancakes dedicated to his sister written in blue ballpoint pen, Neptune's Lair. When I met her, word on the street was that Esme was beyond help. Her friends called her crazy and borderline. By the religiously inclined of former times, she might have been thought of as demon-possessed. During drunken fits, she'd get into fistfights or threaten to throw herself from freeway overpasses. She walked a thin line and repeatedly upset rumors of her demise, taking immense pride in being what she called stronger than dirt. She had a breathalyzer in her car. 2 years ago, she'd overturned her Hyundai in an incident where she was discovered to be 3 times over the legal blood alcohol limit. She made financial ends meet by renting her body out for clinical trials, hoping the entire time that she'd taken placebos instead of the experimental medications upstart pharmaceutical companies produced for everything from bipolar disorder to angina. There were times she'd come home from one of these lab rat money runs with side effects, bad ones, but they'd eventually subside and she'd make jokes about how at least she hadn't become the victim of sudden death syndrome. That Esme, tougher than dirt, as resilient as rubber. Even though she smoked all my stuff, drank all my wine, and frequently resorted to flings with Little Dicky, a former boyfriend I suspected provided her with something I couldn't, I felt something for her. I made what I called minimum rage, flipping beef patties and assembling burgers at a late-night boardwalk diner called Cracker Jack's. Before the week was up, with Esme's and my drug debts, I'd be begging tourists for change to buy spare cigarettes. For a while, we resided in a tent on the rooftop of a building where Desmond Tutu Phillips, a friend since freshman year in high school, was the apartment building manager. Desmond risked losing his job for giving Esme and me a key to the restricted access rooftop. Despite our unconventional ways, he had the patience of Jesus with us. Even so, I'd still piss over the side of the building, and Esme would relieve herself where and whenever convenient. When we got too grungy, we'd take care of our hygiene needs at the showers meant for beachgoers. At night, we read copiously by battery-operated lantern light and shared a predilection for somber stuff. Our favorites were Rimbaud, Baudelaire, Camus, and Hamid. When we tired of the Cracker Jacks grub, I'd bring to our squatter pad. We'd get high and end up eating red velvet cake and whatever else she'd send me to shoplift from the supermarket, a 10-minute walk away. On the stroll back home, paranoid from the nearly toxic cosmic kush, and with my backpack stuffed with our pilfered renegade sustenance, I'd be startled by the sounds of passing cars, thinking a cop was sooner or later bound to stop me for stealing Esme's and my daily booze and bread. Although I feared the cops, I always suspected my weed paranoia was caused by a much deeper-seated guilty conscience. I should have confronted little Dickie a long time ago. Also, I had left my mother's side when I felt her senescence was becoming a burden. There's no way I had the resolve or character to be the caregiver for an aging parent. When I confessed these thoughts to Esme, she'd dismiss my concerns and say I needed to stop overthinking things. I remember once when Esme and I were walking home from a party, she said, pointing to a couple of graffiti-spraying gangbangers, "Javier, I'm scared. That guy with the Supreme hoodie has a gun." He pointed it at me, never sure whether she really meant such things, but fueled by drug and alcohol-induced courage, I confronted the guy. "Hey man," I said to the one Esme had referred to. "You know what I am?" "A janky spick boy with a death wish," he answered with a sneer. "No, I'm a delinquent out to get delinquents. What you gonna do with that heater?" Turns out he didn't have a gun, just another can of neon spray paint, but he wasn't overly enthused by the tete-to-tete I had with him. He and his friend didn't kick my ass, but Mr. Supreme sprayed me in the eyes with the paint. Esme started mouthing off to him, but even though I was partially blinded, I pulled her away for fear that we'd both get battered. Those are the kind of stupid things I'd do for Esme, but the important thing to me was she would call me things like her ballsy little soldier and lavish me with affection after I'd go out on a limb for her. I put blood, sweat, and tears into the relationship, and rarely did I think it wasn't worth it. The end of our star-crossed romance began after Esme came back from the free clinic where Dr. For the People, Randolph Hamilton, told her she had cervical cancer. After she heard the diagnosis, Esme became determined to go out with a bang. She began visiting little Dickie more frequently. She demanded I steal tequila instead of wine from the supermarket, and when she drank the Patron I'd bring to our squatter's abode. Her temper became hair-trigger sensitive. The only respite I'd get from her gloomy rages would come when I'd invite her to the beach when the moon was full. Apparently, little Dickie had something against doing things that smacked of romance or chivalry with her. Moonlit midnight swims in the Pacific were one such pastime Dickie didn't seem to have a taste for. On the nights Esme and I'd sink our toes into the wet sand while the moon's phantasmagorical light reflected onto the dark side of the earth, she'd momentarily forget about her terminal diagnosis. She'd also forget about her mortal condition whenever we'd watch movies at the rooftop squat. I don't know if it's the case with most people, but when I'm high and watching a good flick, I'll hear messages in the movie's dialogue. I'll also interpret anything someone says out loud about the film to have personal relevance. I've heard these phenomena are called thoughts of reference by those in the field of mental health. Schizophrenics have them, but I guess when I'm high, I might get a little schizophrenic. Makes me wonder why I keep smoking the cosmic kush. But one night, while viewing Scarface with Esme for the 5th or 6th time, she said something along the lines of, "God, it's just so good. I can't get enough of it." to my cognitively distorting and high mind, Esme wasn't talking about the film's extended denouement where Tony Montana gets shot by his sister, then exterminates a battalion of rival narco-gangster cockroaches before he ends up floating face down, bloodied and bullet-riddled in his "The World Is Yours" Miami drug boss mansion. No, Esme wasn't talking about the film. My mind interpreted her statement as referring to her relationship with Little Dicky. Before Montana gets the shotgun blast in the back that finally does him in, Esme exclaimed, "Jesus, we all know he's doomed." When she said that, I couldn't help but believe that she was referring to our friend and benefactor, Desmond. If for whatever reason Desmond was doomed, Esme and I would soon be off the rooftop and into the street, nowhere for a loving couple to be, especially when one in the pair has terminal cancer. I didn't know whether Esme's words would attract fate, but I knew that her despair was making her behave more erratically. She started to break down in tears when she'd think of having to be holed up in a hospital or hospice, awaiting the inevitable during the last stages of her disease. That night after the movie, and while coming down off the perception-altering shrubbery, I decided to take a course of action. The next morning, I bought 2 tabs of acid off Tripster Todd, a boardwalk dealer of LSD and various other hallucinogens. I told Esme that we'd go for a swim at the beach after I got off my shift at midnight. We walked to the beach at close to 2 a.m. On the way there, I picked a purple flower, whose name I didn't know from a garden in front of a well-tended house. As we walked, I put the flower in Esme's hair. The moonless night sky's inkiness was blinding. The tide was low, and we had to walk a good distance to the water. There was no one on that portion of the beach except for us. As she dipped down into the waters ahead of me, Esme expressed her gratefulness for not having any open wounds, given that a recent outbreak of carnivorous bacteria made coastal immersions risky for bathers thusly exposed. Before going waist-deep into the water, I surreptitiously took the 2 tabs of LSD I'd bought from Tripster. After letting the acid dissolve, I gave Esme a prolonged French kiss. In a little time, my vision, swayed by the acid, started playing tricks on me. Although there was virtually no light on the beach, my eyes summoned a warm, radiant glow in the heavens above. "Jav, I feel funny," said Esme. I splashed her with water and told her that she was okay, that everything was going to be okay. I knew what I had to do. I played out a dialogue in my mind where I said, "You need to confess," and asked her why she was always going to see Little Dicky. In my mind, she responded, "My lips are sealed." "That's exactly what they aren't," my courageous imagination told her. We were up to our solar plexuses in the ocean. I took hold of her shoulders and dunked her beneath. She came up, laughed, then giddy from the acid, childishly said, "Jav, I'm going to die." I said, "No, you're not, love. You're going to live forever. Remember, Esmeralda Lucero is tougher than dirt." I repeated the dunking gesture, this time less playfully, taking a fraction of a second longer than Esme deemed comfortable for her to be under the tide. The 3rd time I dunked her was even more forceful. She struggled in my grip under the water. I crossed a threshold. She freed herself from my hold, surfaced, then said, "What do you think you're doing?" More in the form of an exclamation than a question. I smiled. The white of my teeth infuriated Esme more. "It's not funny, you hijo de puta. Why do I feel like I'm tripping?" She screamed before trying to dig her nails into my eyes. The time had arrived. I knew the cure. I put her neck into a vice-like hold in the crook of my right elbow and dunked her under the dark waters again. Her arms flailed about. She tried to kick, she writhed, but I held fast. I could hear her submerged cries, but they were muffled and accompanied by an upbubbling of exasperated air. Her writhing gradually slowed down until she managed a last, weak exhalation and final spasm, and then yielded her spirit to the Pacific Ocean. I left her body floating where I had drowned it. Even though no one had heard or seen what transpired, I was still tripping on the acid, and the walk back to Desmond's apartment building was haunted by bogeymen and illusionary images of people pointing fingers and whispering accusations. I climbed the stairs to the rooftop where my unhoused person's hovel was located, lit a cigarette, and was overcome by an urge to write a song. I took out my notebook and a pen and started scribbling. Moonless night, world's delight, me, you drowning, out of sight, we fear most. Give up the ghost, but before we do, let's make a toast on our tongues. Still feeling young, summon moon, and avoid the sun. We'll be scared, 'cause we've dared. Court Pluto, in Neptune's lair. I put the pen down, satisfied with the verses, and thought of the poor and beaten down, of the fact that we are all victims to the onslaught of implacable and incorrigible time. I thought of what could have been, and of what now would never be between Esme and me. After another cigarette, I laid on my rooftop sleeping bag, unable to forgive myself, despite my best intentions, for the simple thing, the merciful thing I'd done. Before I knew it, I had cried myself to a still and unrepentant slumber, the sleep of both the wolf and the lamb, of the innocently voracious and the imperfectly innocent. No junior league. Running away, starting over, it's not as easy as people think. You have to give up everything. Oh, that part's easy. Everyone thinks we are all traceable, that you can't really hide. But, see, everything is tied to your identity, your papers. If you change those, you are a different person. Fingerprints? If they're in the system, if you've ever been fingerprinted, it's a little trickier. But it can be done. Oh, that's right. You're a teacher, so of course you've had background checks. Well, you'll never teach again, so it won't matter. What? I told you, you have to give up everything. When changing identities and dropping off the radar, you have to change what you do. Whatever habits you had, wherever you went, do elsewise. You won't be hanging out in bookstores anymore, and you can't join the junior league in Denver if you were in every junior league of every city you ever lived in. Change your appearance, of course, but even as a brunette, you can't join the local improv group or historical society. That's where they will look for you. Join the Corvette Club and build a persona as an expert in 1972 Flybird Corvette transmission modifications, or whatever might be a car thing that you know nothing about and could care less about right now. You can join the Quilt Club, or the Daughters of the Mayflower, I guess. If the most important thing to you is dropping out, disappearing, disconnecting, and avoiding the consequences of what you did, you have to truly start over. You cannot be the same person, because when they come looking for you, they will look for her. Changing your papers and license and online trail are just technicalities. Harder technicalities, of course, given the internet and government, but just a technicality. But you have to be willing to change, and I'm really not getting that about you. What is the good of posting misleading social media content like faking a trip to France before abandoning it all if you are just going to go to the city you've talked about since you were a kid? Oh, now you're upset? What did you think this would be like? You would change your name from Emma to Emily and go live your exact life somewhere else, just without going to jail? Were you going to get a husband named Jason, too? Oh, that was cruel. I'm so sorry. You poor thing. dealing with the consequences of your actions one way or the other. Look, I don't think you are cut out for this. You haven't really thought it through. What? No, I won't return the deposit. I don't know. That puts me at risk if I get you transplanted and then you show up at the first community theater audition and get nabbed. Yes, they will. They will be looking for you. Once they follow the dots back to you, you are a goner. They need someone to pin this on. Look, lady, it's not like you are skipping out on a credit card bill or a boring husband. A flashy murder like this, there will be a manhunt. Your picture will be out. You have to go somewhere you never talked about and have no connection to. Change what you look like. Lay low for a while. And then don't do anything you've ever done before. What kind of life is that? What kind of question is that? A life out of jail, I guess. You know what? We're done. I'm out. If you can't, okay, calm down. Yes, fine, I can still help you. But Jesus, lady, I'm not a psychiatrist. You do this or don't. I don't care. You go home, the back way, please, with your GPS and location off, and call the police and turn yourself in with some kind of sob story. Or you give me your license and credit cards and goddamn library card, everything, and take this airline ticket and this ID and catch the 4 p.m. flight to Indianapolis. Well, why not Indianapolis? Have you ever been there before? Well then, that's why. Go home and... No, you can't go home and say goodbye. You haven't heard a word I've said. Get out and dash. Oh, that's better. Good. Small bills. At least you listened to one thing I said. Let's see. Yep. That's all of it. You're going through with this then? Give me that. No, the whole purse. You can have back anything that doesn't have your name on it. Take this. You are Sarah Jackson. There's an airline ticket, driver's license, birth certificate, and 1 credit card. Here's the info and PIN for the credit card. Set up an online account. Change the address as soon as you get settled. No passport. You didn't pay me enough to leave the country. In a year, you hear me? Wait a year. You can apply for more credit. You are an orphan and a widow and have no kids. There's a paper with your history and family. Memorize it and destroy it. Do not be found with that. No one keeps around a paper to remind them who their grandparents are. You'll pass a state background check in Indiana, but a federal might get tricky. Try not to get fingerprinted. Yes, you can work. Any job you can fake. Work for cash if you can, but don't draw attention to yourself. Well, just make up a resume that you can do. There's one more service I provide. If you need a reference, call this number. Jenny will set you up. You'll get a number for them to call and get a good reference. That's the only reason to call this number. I can't get you out of any other bullshit. Well, congrats, Sarah. You have 3 hours to get to the airport. Walk about 4 blocks before you catch a cab. No, I don't care. Any direction. No, leave your car. No, you can't take your car to the airport. Are you kidding? They find your car, check cameras and manifests, and it takes them about 5 minutes to figure out Indiana. No, we can't sell it for you. Get everything you need out of it now. Listen, leave anything with your name. Don't take a receipt or Starbucks cup, for God's sake. It has to be abandoned. We'll take it out State Route 6. They'll have to dredge the quarry to make sure you didn't off yourself. Oh my God. Yeah, you're welcome, lady. You're all set. You kept about 1,000 cash like I told you, right? Split it up, put it in different places. All right, good luck. Remember, don't catch a cab right out front. Walkaways first. Oh my God, what a piece of work. Jenny, I'll be out. I have a deposit to make. Have Mario take this Corolla out to the quarry, the usual. Her? Nah, she won't make it. I give it about a month. Someone will spot her at a bookstore. Some people just can't handle change, easy money. Debbie said that it was lucky for us that the weather would make for fewer people on the roads, less chance we'd be seen. 25 freaking degrees. I do not like the cold. This will be the first time I've ever done anything with Randy. This thing was his idea, I think, but it was Debbie that brought me into it. There's $6,000 to be had, and it sounds like no problem having it, if you don't mind robbing some old lady, which I don't. This weather is awful, though. They're always predicting snow, but we don't usually get any. When we do get it, it's pretty, covering up the trash on the ground, making the town look better than it really is. So, Debbie told me about this, and then has Randy tell me the details. We're planning on tricking this old lady, but they don't really have a handle on how to do it. We're going to tell her they're from the city, tell her they need to look inside her house. Randy looks like a teenager, and Debbie's a girl. They need me to be the man from the city. I told them I had a blue shirt with badges on it. It had belonged to my brother Danny, who's doing time in the state penitentiary, back when he worked for the city. I've got his van, too, and it's plain white like a service vehicle. Debbie was Danny's girlfriend before he got locked up. Now she's Randy's. She ought to be my girlfriend because I'm a lot more like Danny than Randy will ever be. But I get it. Randy is smart, and Debbie wanted somebody who was not like Danny. So, we got this plan. It's Randy's plan, but we're all in on it. I have a gun. It's a gun Uncle Terrell gave me when I was a kid. It's a .22, but it works. Randy said not to bring it, but I really want to have it with me. You can never tell what might go wrong. What if this old lady has a gun? Did he ever think about that? So, I got the shirt and my van. We got what we need. This morning, we went back over what to do. We go to the old lady's house at a little after 12. Traffic in town is busy, but this place is outside of town. It's on a street that zigzags off from the highway toward Atlanta. I drive up in front of the house, parking so that she can see the white van if she looks out the window. I get out and go up to the door with Debbie behind me. Debbie is going to be wearing a big coat, and I'm going to say she's my trainee. First, though, I have to tell the old lady that there's been a problem with her electric bill and that she's being charged too much. The city is sending me to fix it. I'm gonna tell her. She opens the door, because who wouldn't want somebody to fix it so that a bill is lower? And that's when I tell her who Debbie is supposed to be. I'm asking the old lady where the kitchen is, because this problem is probably at the outlet the refrigerator is plugged into. When she starts to take me there, Debbie asks if she can use the bathroom. While I'm in the kitchen, Debbie goes to the old lady's bedroom. Randy says the money is in the bottom drawer of her Chester drawers. I keep the old lady busy till Debbie comes to the kitchen. Then I make like I fixed the problem, and we leave. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The old lady won't know she's been robbed. The next time she looks for the money and it's gone, she won't think that it might have been the city electric guy. She's old. If she does remember us, she sure as hell won't remember what we looked like. Randy says there's about $6,000 there. I'm like, how do you know? He says the old lady is Dexter Lockwood's granny, and Dexter told him, we gotta give Dexter some of the money. Randy says no, that Dexter is stupid, and just told this without thinking up the plan himself. Randy is staying in the van while Debbie and me go inside. With the weather as cold as it is, it wouldn't be a good idea to turn the thing off and just hope it will start when we get back. It's usually reliable, but in this weather, I don't know. I'm leaving it running with Randy inside, out of sight, and damn, it is snowing. So, I drive a little slower on the way, looking around to see how many cars are out, and since the snow just started, there's quite a few. We get to the house, and it's not what I was expecting. I thought it would be something pretty nice, but it's not. It's a little bit bigger than the shotgun houses in Milltown, but not by much. There's a carport full of junk, and the Plymouth in the driveway looks like it hasn't moved in a while. I asked Randy if he was sure this was the place, and he said that he was. I parked on the street and looked over at Debbie. She's a pretty girl, but the kind of pretty girl that knows she's pretty. The coat she was wearing had a fur collar that she pulled up to cover a good bit of her face. She said, "Here we go. Part 2. Debbie." When Steve pulled up in front of the house, I could tell that he was scared, and it wasn't just because of the snow. He was dim in the head like his brother Dennis, but Dennis wasn't scared of anything. That's why he was locked up. A little bit of scared can be a good thing. It keeps you from being foolish. Randy and I had gone over the plan a good bit before we got Steve involved. He had the shirt and the plain white van. He was too dumb to send in alone. Somebody needed to go with him to be sure he didn't screw it up. While we're going over the plan, Steve started talking about having a gun he wanted to bring with him. Randy said no. A gun would change all of this. We would go from basically pulling a scam to maybe getting charged with assault with a deadly weapon of an old lady. I'm scared that Steve brought it anyhow. So, it's below freezing, and the snow has started to stick. I didn't say anything though. We needed to be focused on what we were doing, because this was $6,000. 2 for each of us. I could last 6 months on $2,000 if I was careful. And I was careful. I'm not mentioning that until we get this done. I want my money, and then I'm done with Randy, and with Steve, and with Dennis. When he stopped the van in front of the house, I could see Steve starting to freak out a little. I didn't want him to spend too much time thinking, so I just looked at him and said, "Here we go." I got out of the van and started around. Randy got in the driver's seat. We went to the door and knocked. The old lady opened it right away, like she had been standing there waiting for us. She's tiny. I mean, I'm only 5'2" myself, but she's shorter than me. A tiny little old lady. "Can I help you?" Steve stutters a little, but manages to say, "We're here about your bill. Has it been too high lately?" "What bill?" she says. "The electric bill," he says. "Has your electric bill been too high?" "It's high," the old woman says, just like any other old woman would have said about any other bill. The old lady is tiny, but she's mad, staring at him right in the eye. "Let me come to your kitchen," Steve says. "I can show you what the problem is." "I need to go to the bathroom," I say, but the old lady doesn't hear me. The old lady looks at me and says, "They got to send 2 of you to look at it?" Steve is in over his head. "Let me come to your kitchen," he says. The old lady's hackles are up big time, and I can see she's not scared. She knows we're trouble, and she's not going to let us in. I say again, "I need to go to the bathroom." "I can show you where the problem is, and I can fix it and save you some money," Steve says, and he sounds desperate saying it. I could see where this was heading. She would slam the door and call the police, and even if we didn't get caught, there wouldn't be any money. That was for damn sure. I shoved past Steve and pushed the old lady backwards. I thought she would fall, but she didn't. She staggered a step, and I was inside. I spun her around and pushed her face first into the sofa. I didn't want her looking at us any more than she already had. I could hear Steve snatching drawers open in the next room. I'm thinking the jerk doesn't remember where the money is. Randy had said specifically that it was in the bottom drawer in a cardboard box under some old nightgowns. Why the hell could he not find it? I hear him cussing then. He comes out and says, "Debbie, You're going to have to come and look for it. I can't find it. Idiot! Names! Now the old lady knew my name at very least. By then, he was beside me, leaning into the old woman himself, holding her there. I got up and went to the bedroom and saw that he had ransacked it. The room straight across the hall was a little bathroom. There was one other door still closed. I went to it. I opened the door, expecting to find a different bedroom, the right bedroom, but instead, it's piled high with boxes and crap. Her junk room. Damn it, I said. I went back to the front room where Steve continued to hold the old lady down. I leaned down to her and said, "Where is your money?" "I don't have any money," she said. Steve started to let her up, and it made me so mad that I slapped his head. He leaned back into her. "You do. We know about it. It's supposed to be in the bottom drawer of your chest or drawers in a box. Now where is it?" She said, "My Christmas money?" "Yeah," I said, wondering if she thought we wouldn't take it if she called it that. "It's gone. I spent it." Now I was mad. How did Randy get such bad information? What the hell were we going to do now? Finally, I said, "You must have started saving up again for next Christmas. Where's that at?" "In my sewing room," she said. I didn't say anything to that. "The sewing room," she said. "I heard you opening doors. I know you went in there." "The room with the boxes?" "Yeah, I keep it in one of the boxes in there." "Which one?" She started describing where it was, but I thought there was no way I was going to go in there and find it, even with her description. There was crap everywhere in that room. "Bring her down here, Jeff," I said, heading down the hall and expecting Steve to understand that I was referring to him. Again, it took 2 beats for him to catch on. He held the old woman by the back of her neck, pushing her in front of him. I pulled my coat up high enough that she couldn't get a good look at my face. When she got inside the room, she went to a stack of boxes and moved them around, finally pulling out one that looked, to me at least, like every other box in the room. She fumbled and opened it as we stood behind her. Part 3. Randy. There was supposed to be $6,000 in the box. If anything, I thought there might be more. I told Debbie about it, hoping she could talk Steve into doing the actual theft. Her idea was better because she knew about the official-looking shirt. I didn't want to deal with Steve. He was stupid. This needed to be simple, not simple-minded. Debbie planned it well. None of us knew how the weather would be that day. The temperature had been around freezing for a few days. Then it dropped into the 20s, and then it started to snow. I thought about calling it off, but I didn't want to lose Steve. We could do this. Debbie had Steve practice everything he was going to say and do. She walked him through it over and over, until we were all bored to death by it. The main thing was to say he was from the city, and that there was a problem with the electricity, and he could fix it and save her money. Once they were inside, the whole thing would take 2 or 3 minutes. I thought the shirt would be enough to make Steve look like a utility worker. It wasn't. He looked like a doofus wearing a work shirt. It was too late for me to say anything to him or Debbie. We were committed to the plan by then. I looked at him and wanted to ask if he had brought his little gun with him, but I didn't. I just wanted to hurry and get this over with. When we got there, Steve is like a raccoon caught in a car's headlights, and I think, damn, we are done for. I thought about pulling the plug, but I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. Debbie came through, getting him out of the van and headed toward the house. I watched them till they got to the door, and I realized how much snow had fallen. Maybe 5 minutes passed before I heard the gunshot. That son of a bitch had brought a gun after I told him not to. He fired again, and I thought, dumb bastard has killed her. I was already out of the van, which I had left running and with the door open, and was running toward the house. I can hear Debbie crying, and I know it's because she just watched that fool kill the old woman. The door pops open and Debbie comes staggering out, doubled over. I grab her shoulders and raise her up. There is a widening red patch at her stomach that I don't want to look at too closely. I put my arm under her and help her to the van. I can't very well drive her to the hospital and explain that our partner accidentally shot her while we were robbing an old lady. And I can't walk away from that situation either, I realize. I opened the side door and laid her down. "This is messed up," I said. She didn't say anything back. I ran back to the little house, knowing that neighbors might have heard the gunshots and called the police. I needed to get Steve and the money and get the hell away and figure out what we needed to do about Debbie. I didn't want to see the dead old lady. I didn't. As soon as I got inside, I yelled, "Steve!" There was no answer. I went down the little hall and looked in the bedroom, but no one was there. I started into the junk room, but I fell, slipping in blood on the floor. My feet slid from under me, and I went down hard, banging my head on the floor. Someone spoke my name. I turned my head and saw Steve lying on the floor beside me. Blood throbbed slowly from his neck. He was not dead, but he would be soon. I heard my name again and looked up to see the old woman standing above me, her face filled with anger and sadness. "Randy," she said. Then I saw that she was holding the old Colt pistol that had belonged to my grandfather. I didn't realize she still had it. I should have, but I didn't. "Hey, Grandma," I said, "better fires." "Dear Jay, I lit the mailbox on fire when I saw you kissing Em. Others told me that when feeling too much, one might hurt oneself. There might be cuts along the arm or starvation. I had no inclination toward self-harm. From a very young age, I understood that the world does enough to you. Why do any more to yourself? I saw you kissing Em behind the cafetorium, and I ran all 7 blocks home. On the way, I saw the Gozer's blue mailbox, and I knew it had to burn. One match around the base, and it went up quickly along with whatever mail was inside of it. The red flag was up, and I did it anyway. Later that night, I attended a slumber party and started the rumor that you had done it, that I often saw you lighting ants on fire with a magnifying glass as though that was a natural origin for someone who would eventually begin setting better fires. Some of the girls believed me. Some didn't care. One told me that you kissed her after her shift at Pizza Grace, and your mouth tasted like a fountain drink. I watched her after she fell asleep. I visualized her waking up to find her hair on fire, but I didn't do it. I didn't want to hurt anyone, not even you. When I asked you to the dance, you told me that you'd already agreed to go with G, even though that was a lie. I knew it was a lie, because I knew enough about you by then. When you lied, your left eyebrow would twitch. Maybe it still does. Do you still lie? Would you tell me if you did? I told you that I understood and wished you well. I knew that you were going to ask G as soon as I was out of sight. Then, if you changed your mind, you'd simply pick someone else to bring. What you were never going to do is show up with me. Not me. The girl who had to wear baggy tops to hide how much she developed between sophomore and junior year. Not me. The know-it-all who the teachers had stopped calling on, because she always knew the path Napoleon took on his first campaign and the first 15 numbers of pi. I don't think intelligence was a turn-off for you. On the contrary, I think you wanted me to be smarter. You wanted me to be so smart that kissing me would be like allowing dark matter down your throat to rip you apart from the inside. You held me to a different standard. I'm sorry, Jay. I didn't know that's what was going on. I thought you just wanted to kiss the prettiest girls in the school. I never investigated what your deeper motives might have been. The day you told me you couldn't take me to the cotton candy dance, I went to the greeting card store in town and set fire to all the get well cards. They were at the back of the store, and there was only one cashier working. I made quite a pile, struck the match, and walked right out. By the time the smoke alarm went off, I was already watching from down the street. Lucky for me, greeting card establishments don't have security cameras. I went to a pool party the following weekend and told everyone there that you'd confessed to me a year ago that you hated greeting cards. Seeds were planted. A freshman who was at the party told me that you'd been putting removable tattoos in her locker. Hearts with knives in them and mermaids who refused to smile. She pulled down her bathing suit bottom and showed me where she'd placed one of the tattoos. It looked like Joan of Arc tied up and suffering her great punishment. I think you're right, she whispered to me in between bites of a burnt hamburger. I think he might be obsessed with fires. Why else would he give me this? The world will give you all the answers you want if you know exactly how to phrase the questions. On the way home from the pool party that day, I saw you in your front yard, mowing the lawn without a shirt on. I waved to you, and you waved back. You flexed for me, and then laughed. I saw a clean line of sweat going down your back to the gray t-shirt that was tucked into your red shorts. I wanted to cover myself in grass and let you run over me. It took me a moment to realize that my hand was still raised in a frozen greeting. You had stopped my time. You'd put me in a deep freeze. Only one thing could dissolve it. The day before graduation, I burned down the school. Part of me knew that eventually it would come to that. I'd used my allowance every week to buy kerosene, matches, bottles, rags, and any other accelerant I could find. The man at the hardware store questioned me about it early on, but I told him that teenage girls were using these types of things to help with our hormones. He seemed perplexed, but no man over 40 wants to know why teenage girls are doing any of the things they do. The next time I came in, he'd set aside some paint thinner for me. It was on sale, 2 for 1. That's what I used in the second floor bathrooms. There was no commencement that year, no caps, no gowns. The only thing thrown up in the air was the spray of a fireman's hose. Students gathered around the periphery of the school. Some cried. I held my homeroom teacher as she asked why anyone would do something like this. I knew that the two of you were writing inappropriate notes to each other between periods. She must have justified it by telling herself that you were mature for your age. And maybe she was right. I try not to condemn anyone if I can help it. The worst condemnation of all has already occurred. The day of the school fire was also the day of the harvest. Everything I'd put into the ground was ready to be reaped. Rumors about your love of starting fires were too widespread to ignore, even though, in many ways, you were the town's favorite son. Your father had been the star linebacker for the football team back when he was in school. Your mother was valedictorian. You were going to do great things, and you were going to go far, and you were going to kiss every girl you wanted to kiss, and never give me more than a wave or a flex of your muscles only to laugh at me for staring. All of that got burned up and turned to rubbish. You went to jail for the very first time. When you got out, you couldn't find a job. Your parents disowned you. You couldn't even find a woman gullible enough to take you in, because by then, you reeked of smoke. Soon, you were dealing drugs and holding up food marts and gas stations. I lost track of how often you were in and out of prison, but I know you're there now, and I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry for the part I played. I'm sorry for every match I struck. I'm sorry you didn't see that I could have learned more. I could have caught on faster. I could have bloomed had you only allowed me some light. When you get out, I plan to be waiting for you. I'll pick you up and you can come stay with me. You can mow my lawn. You don't have to give me anything, just the respect I was owed back when we were children. Back when you thought a little cold water would put me out. You never knew that I was electric, did you, Jay? You never tasted my grease. You never thought to smother me. A little cold water. What was that going to do? I'll be standing at the gates when they release you. I'll bring the cigarettes you like. I'll light the first one. Then, I want a kiss. A nice, long kiss. I want to taste the emission. I want you to fill me up with smoke until I feel as though I'm never going to breathe again. A perfect Sunday evening, except for the screaming and blood. A few years ago, I crossed Fairmont Street to avoid the sun. Had I been a hardier soul and stayed on the east side of the street, I might not have met the woman of my dreams. But I did cross the street, and I met Vivian. In the fullness of time, we fell in love. We have been together 5 years, and each day seems better than the last. Even today seemed perfect, except for the screaming and the blood. You take the legs and I'll get the shoulders, Vivian said, as she reached down to grab the upper part of the bound and gagged man. I did as instructed, and we tossed the writhing body in the bed of the pickup truck. It wasn't easy because he was a fat son of a bitch. Jason Mobley, the man currently enjoying the view from the back of the truck, is as sorry a human being as we had ever come across. Without delving into the sordid details of his sins, suffice it to say that he has put more than one person in the ground and collected the insurance payout. Vivian's mom was one of the victims. I stopped the truck and slid out. Vivian and I took out the jack, a hammer, and a rope. Jason's eyes widened at the sight of the rope, and he wriggled in terror, thinking we were going to hang him. No, Jason. What we were going to do will be much worse. The first kiss did it for me. I had kissed plenty of women before, but none had the cool fire of Vivian's lips. A subtle, searching hunger, a slight moan, a soft sigh. I was lost in Vivian from that point on. Moving Jason was much easier now because we could roll him. He kicked at Vivian, but she punched him in the mouth and the kicking ceased. You had to admire a woman who could solve a problem with a punch. I set the loop of the rope under the truck and placed the jack inside the loop. Vivian loosened the nuts on the flat tire. Now I could jack up the truck. The flat tire was tossed into the back of the truck, and the spare tire was left leaning against the bare wheel. The scenario was ready. Okay, Deeds, let's get this overstuffed bastard under the wheel. That's me, Deeds, short for Dee Dee. A name made for trailer park trash like me. Let's take the rag out of his mouth. Maybe he has some final words before we do him in. I may have come from a home that had wheels, but common courtesy should be observed. Vivian grimaced at the suggestion, but complied. I'll kill you. I'll fucking kill both you whores. Let me go. Vivian kicked him in the ribs. Apparently, Jason Mobley never heard of making one's last words memorable. I squatted down beside Jason. You're gonna have an accident while changing a flat tire. The jack is gonna slip and you'll be pinned under the truck. The weight will crush you, but you won't die right away. Jason tried to wriggle away, so Vivian kicked him in the crotch. Another effective maneuver by the love of my life. It'll be slow and painful, Jason. I'm a nurse, so I know how these things go. Your chest will be crushed from the initial blow, and then from the pressure. You'll start spitting blood, but it won't do you any good because you'll drown in it. The blood, I mean. You gotta let me go. I have money. Lots of money. I'll give it all to you girls. We don't want your money, Vivian spat out. What do you want? I'll do anything. Vivian stared at Jason. I just want to see you suffer, then die, like my mom. He started screaming as we pulled the rope taut. The screams could probably be heard a mile away in this still air, but no one was around to hear them. Vivian and I jerked the rope, and the jack slipped, crashing down on Jason. The screaming stopped, replaced by a grunt, and followed by the gurgle of blood in his throat. Well, he finally shut up, Vivian said. She chewed on a piece of beef jerky, but spat the juice out. I never understood that, but she sure looked cute while spitting. That's true love when you think these sorts of things. That's because he can't scream anymore. His lungs are full of blood, and he's choking to death. Slowly, I hope. Oh yeah, he's having a terrible time of it, I said, glancing at the man being crushed to death. He looked pitiful and small, despite his bulk. Say, do you remember when we first met? I turned to Vivian. She had just spat out a wad of beef jerky and put it in a bag. It wouldn't do to leave DNA evidence behind. Smart woman. Of course. You were just standing in the middle of the sidewalk, staring at me. It was a little creepy, but also nice. Like someone found me attractive. Well, you were that, are that, will always be that, I think. Vivian cuddled up next to me, and we watched Jason slowly slip away. It was terribly romantic, watching someone die while embracing your lover. The police department of Vanderpool, Texas doesn't exist, so the county sheriff and his lone deputy took charge. After an exhaustive investigation that lasted almost 10 minutes, they concluded Jason Mobley suffered a fatal accident. He was a dumb shit anyway, the sheriff said. If brains was leather, he wouldn't have enough to saddle a pissant. And with that trenchant observation, he and the rest of the world walked away from Jason Mobley. 2 nights later, we were in bed, tired and at peace after some serious canoodling. The scent of jasmine wafted in with the cool breeze, the curtains fluttering in the indecisive light of a waning crescent moon. People say that you don't feel better after avenging a death with a death. That's bullshit, Deeds. I feel great about it. Vivian lit a cigarette and passed it to me. I took a long drag and handed it back, letting my hand linger on hers. I don't know that I feel great about it, but I sure don't feel bad about it. I wonder if you feel different about me now. I turned to Vivian and stroked her cheek. Surprisingly, it had tears. Vivian wasn't one of those girls that cried much. The night had gone seriously quiet. Even the curtains stopped making any noise. It was as if they wanted to listen in. I think we should move in together. Vivian smiled and wiped away her tears before kissing me. Like the first kiss between us, it swallowed me whole without consuming me. If we do that, all the people around here will call us lesbians. Viv, we are! She thought about it for a moment before tamping out the cigarette. Okay, your trailer house or mine? You would think this was the end of the story, all wrapped up with a happy ending, right? My friends, this is just the beginning. Another perfect evening was slowly ambling its way towards us. Vivian, very fetching in her cutoffs and tank top, sat on a rock and chewed on beef jerky. I was a little jealous that she could look so good after 10 years of living together. I was never what you'd call pretty, and the years spent toiling as a nurse were taking a toll on me. Not to put too fine a point on it, I was looking a little like 10 miles of bad road. I was also feeling my age, which was uncomfortably close to 40. I thought of my future a lot these days. More specifically, I pondered my life as an old lady. Vivian would tell you that I do this too often, and perhaps she's right. Her sunny disposition gives me sunburn because it never lets up. The problem is that she's too pretty. I see others looking at her, and I know what those looks mean. A cold dread squeezes me. A terrible thought gets in my head and stays there. As sure as sugar is sweet, Vivian will leave me one day, which is why I have to kill her. That's what I tell myself anyway. It isn't easy corralling a rattlesnake. First, you have to find them. Then you have to coax them into a bag without getting bitten. Then you have to feed them and keep them hidden so your victim is caught unawares. I am going to considerable lengths to kill Vivian and make it look like an accident. I hope she appreciates it. Sunday afternoons are hot in August around here, but it starts to cool off around 7 o'clock. When the evening starts to make an appearance, the magic of the area gets serious. This particular Sunday evening was splendid. The wind whispered through the prairie grass and tickled the leaves of the gnarled oaks. Lizards skittered here and there, looking for food or shelter or, perhaps, just a few final rays of sunshine. I tossed my well-kept rattler in the bed of our pickup truck and induced Vivian to come out for a walk. We had our special place about 3 miles down the road. We would often drive there and spend hours walking over the hills and finding a good place to have a late picnic. The picnic usually ended up with us drinking too much cheap wine and getting naked. I hope we didn't traumatize the lizards. And now we come to it. The dastardly deed. Things didn't turn out as planned. I spied on you. Vivian's confession wounded me. How can a person reasonably expect to commit murder when the intended victim is better at it? She had me wrapped up in cellophane, Glad Wrap, BTW, before I knew what was happening. It was a little embarrassing to be put in such a position, but even worse was the betrayal. I should have known, though. She stopped kissing me like she used to kiss me. I never thought it would come to this, Viv, but you kept on getting prettier, and I just got older. Vivian took the bag with the snake from the back of the truck and laid it down by my feet. She knelt next to me and stroked my hair. I could see the tears streaming down her face, and her chest spasmed as she tried not to sob. I still love you, you idiot, but I can't let you kill me. I could argue the point, but I didn't. No use. She held the upper ground, and she had the snake. I eyed the bag distastefully. Vivian saw me and understood. Probably not a very pleasant way to go, but it's what you had planned for me. True enough, my journey in life is over. I know that because I know Vivian. She'll carry through with the deed, and I'll be just another rattlesnake victim in South Central Texas. The only consolation I have is that she's too smart to get caught. I deserve to die, but she doesn't. It'll probably hurt, Deeds. It has to be the ankle so it looks like an accident, and it'll take a while to stop your heart. I'm sorry, sweetie. It hurt like hell. This is my last bit of writing because my hands are starting to tremble. Like Jason Mobley, I don't have any high-minded final words. I just wish the bitch hadn't outfoxed me. Vivian's narrative. Deeds forgave me for what I had to do. I know this because we kissed one last time. right before the snake bite. It was the same as the first time she kissed me. I can't describe things as well as her, but when she kisses me like she means it, the feeling of her love lingers long after the lips separate. I'm gonna miss her like hell.